This is the way it was. The three of us besieged in the college library. Then suddenly to find out that one of us is a traitor.
Sit down, Josh. Don't be a hero with a broken head. Open the door, Josh. Johnny, I said open it. Sorry, Johnny, but I couldn't see you becoming a part of that wrecking crew.
All of us come to crossroads in life, choosing which road to take from that day. Long after, we wonder what life would have been had we taken the other way. Let me introduce the three of us. This is John Smith, honor student, football star, Vietnam veteran. Yet, somewhere along the way, he chose the road to anarchy and self-destruction. This is one of his ancestors, Jonathan Smith, who gave his life for his country back in 1776. I am Sam Hardin, History Department, this university. It isn't often we get a second chance in life, a chance to go back and take the other way. Let's see if we can work out an allegorical second chance for John Smith, and incidentally see what we can come up with for ourselves. Will it be tragedy or hope? To go back a ways, back to when John Smith came in here tonight, we had reason to think he was here to protect the valuable medical books from the rioters. Imagine the shock when we find he's really here to let the rioters in. Now, why should a normally decent, normally intelligent young person like John Smith choose the road to communism over America and freedom? For one thing, our youth of today are the object of the most extensive, intensive, diabolical campaign ever conceived. Organized and directed by our and their worst enemies. On many of our nation's platforms, radical speakers make a well-paid living going around, many of them subsidized by the communists, telling our young people what's wrong with America. On such a platform, we have seen many self-proclaimed communists and revolutionaries, radical spokesmen for various groups and professions, and sometimes even prominent political figures, all joining in a movement with which the subversive communists plan to destroy America. And why do so many of our young people fall for it? Some of it, of course, is mass hysteria, not stopping to think things through, not stopping to analyze the character or the motives of who's talking. A typical line from such rabble-rousers is,
if America don't come round, America should be burnt down.
Why do they swallow a line like this? Well, they think they want to be different. They want to do their own thing, lead their own life, which too often means wreck their own life. It is true, there are things wrong in this country. There are social and economic inequities. They're being leveled off more and more all the time. But not by scenes like these. And not by our friend John here, so far. In fact, he's a prime example of what's wrong today. To begin with, he's a victim of irresponsible parentage. He has missed the stabilizing influence of a good home and religious upbringing. He has been listening to the wrong people. He has gone in for drugs, loose morals, and wanton destruction. He blames it on what's wrong with America. Well, maybe it's time some of us should start reminding him what's right with America.
What's going on here?
Excuse me, Johnny. I was just, I just can't get over it. When I think of the telecandles we had, and now this electricity.
Electricity?
Well, that's what I say. There's electricity. And all the other things you got. I'm glad I come back to see him. Well, like I told you, we've been hearing things in the spirit world on how this country's going to perdition in a handbasket. Well, now that I see what our country's become, in spite of her shortcomings, well, I might be old-fashioned to say this, Professor, but, doggone it, Johnny, I'm going back to being proud of America. And just ignore the things that are wrong, right? I didn't say that. You're not listening to me.
No, but that's part of the attitude, Jonathan. It's part of being the radical. I mean, even in your day, you must have heard, there's none so blind as he who will not see, and none so deaf as he who will not hear.
Oh, yeah, I suppose so.
Well, our friend John here, your descendant, in that one sentence he has illustrated the two basic tenets of being the true radical. He takes what you say, and then deliberately he twists it around. And then he accuses you of doing the very thing he's doing himself.
He is? Don't listen to him. He's only trying to confuse you. He is.
Well, just answer me this. Now, he didn't say this, but let's suppose he had. You imply that it's wrong to ignore all the things that are wrong in this country.
Well, of course it's wrong.
All right, then why isn't it just as wrong to ignore what's right in America?
Because there's more wrong than right.
Oh, no, come on now, John. Look, you've got a notebook there. Just make note of some of the things that are right, huh? All right, now how do you judge a country? Where should we begin? Maybe we ought to start with the number of people that want to move here compared to the number of people that want to get away, huh? Remember, there are no walls or barbed wire to keep people here who don't want to stay. I've noticed even the ones who complain the loudest don't want to leave. Compare them with the millions who want to get in. Every year, people risk their lives to escape other countries, hoping to reach America. Many die trying. And why do they think it's worth risking their life to get here? Freedom, that's the answer. And the highest living standard in the world.
Not for everybody. Not in the slums and the ghettos.
On the contrary, it's one of the harsh realities of life that every country has its different levels of subsistence. But bracket for bracket, even the poorest here live much better than their counterparts anywhere else in the world. To have good living conditions, you have to have good working conditions, both in and outside the home. We have the best working conditions both places. An infinite variety of home appliances, furnishings, and services to make housework immeasurably easier. On the farm and in the factory, the number and variety of power tools, ingenious machines, and labor-saving techniques make the job so much easier for the working man. Now, what does all this add up to, huh? Look, here we are. We make up 6% of the world's population. And yet we produce more than 50% of its manufactured goods. Our little 6% right here produces as much as the rest of the world combined. Now, isn't that remarkable? The average American citizen's living standard, measured in wealth and purchasing power, is twice that of the average citizen of other countries, 3 times better than most countries, and 4 times better than Russia. Now, doesn't that begin to tell you something?
Sure, if you want to measure greatness by purely selfish materialism, sure.
All right, then how do you want to measure it?
Well, there are other values, you know.
Now, wait a minute, just a minute. What's wrong with this type of materialism? I mean, it's the difference between life in the jungle and life in civilization. And what other values are you talking about anyway? Cultural? Ethical?
Yeah, among others.
Well, it's materialism that fosters those values, among others. Materialism provides the money with which we can build and equip the most schools, the most churches, the most hospitals, the most libraries, and the most research centers. And as for being purely selfish, John, come on, use your intelligence. You know that the communist line is based on the big lie. They pull off some fiendish, indefensible act against a helpless nation or individual. And then they shout down world criticism by pointing at us and calling us capitalistic aggressors. For example, they suddenly attack Hungary. America protests. whereupon they accuse us of imperialistic provocation. Or another example. There's an earthquake or other catastrophe, perhaps in a communist country. Because Americans believe the cry of a child is as pitiful in a communist land as anywhere else, we rush great stores of medicine, food, and warm blankets to the stricken area. And what do the commies do? They remove all USA identification and replace with communist labels before distributing them. Then set up the howl that America is selfish for not helping more. When the plain fact is, America is the most generous country on earth. Through our churches, American Red Cross, care packages, and the government itself, we have provided foreign aid to more than 100 countries, running into countless billions. The United States has given more to needy nations, including communist countries, than all the communist countries put together have given to other nations throughout all time. Now, sure, of course, they're going to say that we're selfish. That's the way they operate. And others just parrot the communist line. On the other hand, outright gifts are only one way America aids other nations. As we constantly raise our standard of living, the spin-offs raise standard of other countries. America is the world's greatest inventor and perfecter. Now, Jonathan here seems to like our electric lights.
I surely do. But then I like everything I see.
Well, I think that makes a very good example. I said we were inventors and perfecters. Now, we didn't invent electricity. But the basic facts of electricity were known some 2,000 years, even before there was an America, by scientists in Greece and in England and in Germany. And for 2,000 years, nobody knew what to do with it. It remained for Benjamin Franklin to harness it. And his inventions were the basis from which later Americans invented and developed the electric light and the telephone, intercontinental radio, motion pictures, television, and so on.
Hello, my honey, hello, my ragtime gal. My baby, send me a kiss by wire.
Other Americans have given the world the automobile, steamships, trains, planes, refrigeration, and the mechanized home, factory, and farm, and most of the medicines now used around the world. Again, some of these were known, or at least suspected in rudimentary form, but it remained for America to really develop them and give them to the rest of the world to enjoy. And mind you, John, America is only 300 years old, really just 200 years old as a nation. And yet, these 200 years, largely due to America, has seen the development of mankind as a whole increased astronomically over all the thousands of years before that put together. Now tell me, John, what does this country have to do to rate your respect and admiration?
May I say something?
Sure.
Well, it's done me a sight of good coming forward in time like this, to see how wonderful things have turned out. But I wish I could take you back with me, back in time. Back those 200 years when we were starting as a nation. I wish you could have seen this country then. Oh, it was pretty. Wild, but pretty. All woods and streams and hills and valleys, with patches of little farms. At first, most of us lived on farms. Because homes were scattered, each family was closer together. And because we lived so close to the land, and close to the seasons and growing things, well, maybe it helped us feel closer to God. Oh, it was back-breaking work, farming those days. When I see how farming is done today, whoo-hee, it's hard to remember our first scratchings of the earth with the end of a stick. You just can't believe how much easier it's made the work all over the world.
Because of mechanization in this country, only 5% of our people farm anymore. Yet the nation is the best fed it ever was, and we supply a lot of food to other countries.
Of course, while better farm tools solved one problem, they raised some new ones, too. Farm workers were free to go into other kinds of production, and other production was sure needed. But how could they go? Travel, I mean.
That's right. No highways.
No, but there were waterways. Ahoy, mates. I'm interrupting something, I hope.
Jack.
Ah, there you are, Jonathan. Gentlemen, this is Jack. Captain Jack Smith. This is Professor Harden. Ah, Professor.
Hello, Captain.
Well, is this himself? It is. Here's another one of your ancestors, Johnny. Captain Jack Smith. What ho, Johnny?
Hello.
Oh, and a fine broth of a lad he is. Begorra, Johnny, we could have passed for twins, couldn't we now? Except for me Irish mother, who gave me this red hair.
You're John Smith?
No, no, 200 years before me he was. I'm Captain Jack. Captain Jack was with Rabbit Fulton.
Were you the captain of the Claremont?
No, but I was aboard it. Toot Fulton and I grew up together.
Toot.
Well, that's what we called him, us Pennsylvania farm boys. Toot was all the time dreaming up something. I mind the time he was 13. He fixed up a paddle wheel to our fishing boat so we wouldn't have to row it. He'd sit in the stern and go, toot toot.
Then later he dreamed up the steamboat.
In a way. Of course, there have been boats ever since Noah's Ark.
The principles of the steam engine were known in Greece over 1,000 years ago and never developed, or even the two things thought of together.
No, not till America.
That's right.
Because you see, Johnny, in America, well, people have always been free to dream and to work to make their dreams come true. A lot of American inventors worked on the steamboat. There was Fitch, and Stevens, and Rumsey, and Livingston. Of course, some of the boats weren't much bigger than rowboats, and it was a hard time they had going more than 3 miles an hour. A Green Mountain boy could walk faster than that. If he could find 3 miles of open ground. Fulton designed a special boat with a special engine. We run it from New York to Albany and back. 32 hours up, 30 hours back. But the round trip, mind you, was nigh on 300 miles. And that's something a steamboat had never done at all before. So that's why Toot Fulton gets credit for the first steamboat.
That was the Claremont.
Sure. But her full name was Catherine of Claremont. Catherine was the name of Fulton's wife, and Claremont was the name of her papa's farm. You see, he put up part of the money.
Oh?
People forget things. They forget all the other things that Fulton did to advance water travel all over the world. You see, the way he saw it in this new wilderness land, it was a heap easier to build waterways than highways. Why, he dreamed up a system for making rivers more navigable and tied them together with canals. Indeed, he even invented the first power digger to ream out rivers and dig canals. He planned the Erie Canal from the Hudson River to Lake Erie, one of the first real steps in pushing this nation westward. And did you know he built 15 more steamboats, including the Raritan and the New Orleans, that opened up power shipping up and down the Mississippi? Now, the New Orleans, that's the one I was captain of.
Oh. And he worked in Europe, too, didn't he?
Oh, indeed he did. He helped several countries with their river and canal systems. So you see, Johnny, America was still young, not much older than you are now. Already she was helping other countries, and she's been doing it ever since. And I don't need to tell you what better getting around means for any nation.
If this nation had done nothing else, she's justified her destiny by developing power transportation for the world. Water, land, and air. And remember, all this in little more than a century. 100 years. Why, that's no time at all, when we can trace other civilizations back 10,000 years. In a little more than 100 years, this nation has given the world the steamboat, and then the railroad,
And then the Model T.
oh, don't tell me.
Smitty! Hello, Smitty. Meet Professor Hatton. Professor, this is John Jeremy Smith, but you call him Smitty. Pleased to meet you, Professor.
Hi, Smitty.
And that young fellow over there is, grandfather. Well, you remembered. You couldn't have been, what was it, 7 or 8 when I died. 8, but I remember. Good boy, Johnny. Now, what's this all about, Jonathan? Well, we were just reminding him of what it was that made this country great. Who, Johnny? Well, I know him. He's my own flesh and blood. Well, he's ours, too. Just a few generations removed. Well, then why don't you save your breath for them young scalawags out there on the campus? Have you seen what's been milling around out there? Oh, we've seen him. That's why we need Johnny's help, and people like him. Why didn't you say so? Now, where are we at? Well, we were talking about America's contributions to the world in materialistic ways. Just a few highlights. Talking about invention and transportation, and that's when you chimed in with your friend Henry and the Model T. Well, We never called him Henry. Yes, I worked for Mr. Ford. Close as anyone for a spell, I guess. He's a fine man.
I always thought Henry Ford was about as American as you could get. He was raised on a farm. He knew what it was like to work for a living. He grew up in a home with religious principles.
Yes, and when he married Clara, they raised their children the same way. And so do their children.
True. And while Mr. Ford didn't make the first automobile, he probably did most to start the automobile industry.
He did in my book. Old Model T was the first what you'd call a practical automobile. One the general public could afford.
He also developed the moving assembly line, another American invention. One that other countries are now using. Assembly lines not only made the work easier, the increased efficiency raised wages. But Mr. Ford didn't have it all his own way very long. The competition found ways to make better cars. How did Mr. Ford react to that?
Well, he just put his mind to it and built a still better one. And that's the way it's gone on, back and forth ever since. That's the way American free enterprise works, isn't it?
Exactly. It's the greatest economic system known to man. It allows you to take the greatest good and bring it to the greatest number. Our enemies say that we're materialistic. We are. We provide material benefits that make life better and longer. And not just for America, but all over the world. I wish I could say we were completely unselfish. But I can say this. We are the least selfish nation on earth. Now, is that wrong? Our enemies say that we're capitalistic. We are. But you need capital to build schools and hospital and industrial plants, to lighten labor. The last time I was in Detroit, I was in the Ford plant. It could have been General Motors or Chrysler, but it was Ford. I saw a huge press stamping out fenders, and I asked the foreman, how's it operated? He told me,
the man pushes the button, and the conveyor carries them away.
well, how much does a machine like that cost?
$500,000.
Just one machine?
Just one.
Of course, not many machines cost that much money apiece. But in all American industries, nationwide, the average cost of power tools and equipment and inventories was more than $35,000 per worker. Now, American industry has put up that capital so that they can produce more and better goods, less laboriously, and in a competitive market, so that more people can enjoy more and better products. Now, that is the American capitalistic system. Is that wrong?
No,
Then what is wrong?
that's wrong. We gotta go out there and put a stop to that foolishness.
You think we can do it alone?
Well, we'll never know till we try.
You're not alone. I've fought for this country once. I can do it again. I may be a spirit, but this old musket's solid enough. Those is Kapstensbarer Picora.
Oh, sorry. It's the best I could find. A little crooked, but I'll straighten it out on somebody.
How about that, Doctor? That's quite a family I'm from, huh?
Yes, and it's quite a country they've helped build for us.
Yeah. Wait a minute, fellas. What's the matter, Johnny?
You've given me something better than this. We've had it all along, we just haven't been using it enough. I'm gonna go out there and tell them what's right with this country. That's still our best weapon. When detractors start on what's wrong, we're gonna counter with what's right with America. It may make the difference, you know, between today's tragedy and our hope for the future. Let's try it, huh?